Hello everybody, Mobius Y here with another video for Stellaris Console Edition. Today's video is going to be discussing one of the core mechanics of the game, and this video's topic will be about wars, which has several new mechanics introduced in version 2.2. So before continuing with the video, if you'd like to see more Stellaris Console Edition content, please subscribe to my channel and click the bell icon to be notified when I upload a new video, as I normally upload at least once per week according to my stream schedule. Sometimes I upload more. For example, this video. Now, these newer mechanics videos will be somewhat unscripted, unlike the previous videos that I did before version 2.2, but I still intend to cover the topic in details, so I'm hoping by the end of this video that you will all have learned something. I'd also like to note that this particular video strictly deals with declaring your own wars and what happens when you are victorious or during a war's outcome, and doing things like preparing for the war, etc., and building up fleets. That will be in a different video. Now let's get on to the subject, starting with Casus Belli. Now, in order to declare a war and set your specific war goals, this requires what's called a Casus Belli. This is a new thing in version 2.2. Now, previously, you were able to declare war, and your reasons could be stuff you made up in your head. For example, oh, I want to force subjugation on this nation. Oh, I want to humiliate this empire. And you could just make that up on the fly in your head. However, with this new war mechanic, and namely with the Casus Belli, you need an in-game reason to go to war with a hostile empire. So the war goals that you want to set depends on the status and the diplomacy that you've had with the empire and the kind of war and the kind of Casus Belli that you've created. So, for example, in order to have a conquer war goal, you need to claim some systems, and claims are done either by opening up the claims view and then selecting systems that you want to claim. This will cost you influence. And since I have my two fleets here in Devil's Maw right next to this system here in Okul, I can make a claim on this system, and that just cost me a bit of influence to set up. Once I confirm my claims by clicking the left stick, then the Okul system will be added to my claims, and the influence will be spent. Let's just claim a few more systems, just for posterity. And then we click left stick. This confirms it. I've just spent a whole bunch of influence, and now all these systems are claimed by me. So if I wanted to declare war, I could now select the conquer war goal, and essentially what this means is that my war goal is to add the claimed systems to my own empire. So I could simply swoop in, take out the star bases in those systems, occupy any planets, and I'm largely completing my war goal. Another war goal is to humiliate them, and this requires animosity between you and the hostile empire. In order to get the animosity Casus Belli, you have to declare them a rival. So let's do that. Where's the declare rivalry? Okay. Only empires with a relative power greater than pathetic and less than overwhelming can be declared rivals. So if their overall relative power is either inferior, equivalent, or superior, then you can declare them your rival. However, if they're pathetic or overwhelming compared to you, then you cannot declare them a rival. I actually forgot that point, so that's good to know. So I can't declare them a rival right now. However, if we did, when we go to the declare war option, one of the war goals that we could set would be to humiliate them, and this causes them to get reduced influence. I think they suffer a happiness penalty, all sorts of other stuff. Pretty much very, very, very similar to the previous humiliate war goal, where nothing is accomplished aside from humiliating the other nation, and they suffer some certain production penalties. And then the last two are to make tributary and vassalize. These are both the subjugation Casus Belli, and in order for you to get this Casus Belli and make it a war goal, they have to have refused your subjugation request when you send it to them. So when you go to the diplomacy screen, you either offer protectorate status, demand tribute, or offer vassalization, or however it's worded. So in this instance, I'm going to demand tribute of them because I want to make them my tributaries. So when I demand tribute, I know that they're going to refuse it, hence the red X, and on the right-hand side, their acceptance is really, really, really low. So I'm going to demand tribute, and then we'll continue the game just a little bit further. And you'll see in just a second, we can now use the subjugation Casus Belli against the Scanary nation. And we'll see that they're in their communique. They have refused the subjugation request. So by going back to the diplomacy screen, I go to declare war. And now these two war goals, make tributary or vassalize, are available. So once one of these requirements is met, once you have one of these Casus Belli, you may start a war. And you essentially want to choose which war goal you ultimately want to end up with. So if I wanted to conquer the systems that I've claimed, I would select that and then hit declare war. If I wanted to make them a tributary, I would click on that and hit declare war. And once you declare war on another empire, whether it's a human player or an AI player, they have some time to respond with their own war goals, which they will be trying to meet, essentially. So let's go ahead and declare war, because I want to show you the war screen. I want to make these guys my tributary because my economy isn't doing so good. I'm at negative 46 energy credits. So make tributary, declare war,
to safeguard our
and
interests.
we go here and it says what our attacking war goal is, make tributary, and the effect would be that the Scanary nation becomes my tributary. So when we go back to the war screen, it will now show a bevy of additional information. The main thing to look at is what's called war exhaustion, and this is something that is gained during a war from any empires that are participating in the war. And war exhaustion is essentially an empire's willingness to continue fighting. The higher their war exhaustion, the more amenable they are to ending the war, essentially. So when an empire is losing lots of ships and armies, as well as they have several of their own planets occupied by the enemy, then they will have gained a bunch of war exhaustion. And if you get this war exhaustion really high, then they're far more likely to straight up surrender to their enemy's demands. So you want to create as much war exhaustion as you need to try and complete your war goals. Whether it's offering a peace, status quo peace offering, where you essentially gain control of the systems you have conquered, and I'll get into that a little bit more in just a second here, or by straight up achieving your war goals. And you could even call for a surrender, but we'll touch on that a little bit later. So you have to make sure that the enemy empire has gained more than enough war exhaustion to complete your war goals. So we're actually going to jump ahead to right at the end of this war and take a little bit of a closer look at how war exhaustion can affect the end of a war. Okay, so we've actually jumped ahead several years. I have gone around to all the systems that I can and basically conquered their systems and occupied all of their planets with my armies right now. So when I go back to the war screen, you'll see that right now the enemy has enough war exhaustion that I could make a peace offering to settle for a status quo. And what this would essentially do is cause all systems that I have conquered, not all, but most of the systems that I've conquered via quote-unquote destroying their star bases to fall under my control. So during a war, when you attack enemy systems and you take out their starbase, the starbase falls under your control, and you essentially control that system. You don't actually gain that system in your territory. That won't happen until the end of the war, either when you force your conquer war goals upon the enemy, or when you force a status quo, like I will be doing in this case. So the enemy has gained quite a bit of war exhaustion from something called attrition. They've gained 3% of war exhaustion due to 9 ships lost. They haven't gained any war exhaustion from losing 27 armies, and they've gained a lot of war exhaustion from two of their planets being occupied, and 22 of their systems being occupied. So they've gained a lot of occupation war exhaustion from that as well. So they've gained enough war exhaustion, not so much where I can achieve my war goal to force them to be a tributary, because the acceptance of that is right now showing as 0. It needs to be at least 1 before they'll accept that. But they will settle for a status quo, and this is actually a viable solution to ending the war if forcing a status quo completes your own personal objectives and you gain the systems you want. So we're actually going to force a status quo right now. So you select that option and hit send offer, and then you have to let time elapse a little bit further before we'll see a response and the results of sending them our peace offering. And once they do, you'll see that their territory is going to be heavily chopped up. So the war has ended with a status quo. A new Scannerian empire will be created as an ally or subject of YouTube worthy out of 22 occupied Scannerian systems. So we're going to agree to that. We'll accept this for now. And now we have a Scanneri stellar sovereignty, and most of the enemy's systems are under the new nation's control. And there's even a few over here in this other area where they had built some systems. So if your goal here was, it's very likely that if your goal here was to force conquest and you weren't able to occupy all the systems that you wanted, if you forced a status quo, it's more likely that a bunch of these systems would actually fall directly under your control. Now, this Scanneri stellar sovereignty, is actually a tributary. So in a way, we have completed our objective, and most of these systems that are now under the new empire's control are essentially all a tributary to us as now. So this could be a viable solution to the war. However, a status quo also causes your own systems that have been conquered and occupied by the enemy to fall into their hands or start a new empire as well. So be aware of this. If a status quo will cause you to lose more than you gain, you might not want to go for it. Unless you really want to avoid, losing more than you've already lost. So in this particular example, I want to make the original Scanneri nation a tributary. I don't want a new empire popping back up, so there was not enough war exhaustion in order to do that. So to cause more war exhaustion, I just need to wait some time longer. So we're going to jump back to the same save state before I declared victory in this particular war. We'll jump back to the same point and wait just a minute there so that I can force the original empire to fully become my tributary. Okay, so we're back to the same point just before the end of the war. If we go to the war screen, we'll see that they've still got the same amount of war exhaustion and negative occupation score. And I still can't force them to be a tributary. So in order to make them a tributary, we're just going to wait a little bit longer, because one of the ways that empires gain war exhaustion is through attrition, and you'll see it in the boxes underneath my cursor there. Both for the Scanneri nation and for myself, we're both at 43% war exhaustion from attrition, and this does accumulate over time as the war continues. Usually for all empires participating in the war. So if we wait a little bit longer, the enemy's war exhaustion will be high enough where I could force my war goal upon them. Before we do that, though, just a quick note: you can surrender at almost any time during the war if it is going badly for you and you don't want to lose more than you've already lost. The results of surrendering, obviously, they depend on the enemy's own war goals, and in this example, the Scanneri nation, they want to humiliate me, so they would not claim any systems if I surrendered to their war goals. We would have reduced empire influence gain and pop happiness for 10 years, and they would gain a lump sum dump of influence for humiliating us. So we would have some penalties for 10 years afterwards. They would get a bit of influence right away, and we would have to stick with those happiness and empire influence gain penalties for about 10 years there. But apart from that, nothing else would really happen. There shouldn't be any changing of hands of any star systems. So if things were going badly and you simply don't want to lose any more star bases or stations or whatever, because it would simply cost you too much to repair or replace them, you could straight up surrender. However, we don't want to do that. We're winning this war, so I'm going to unpause the game. We'll wait just a little bit longer, And now that the month has elapsed, we have both gained just a tad more war exhaustion, and I can actually enforce subjugation upon them now. So I can make them a tributary and this will achieve my war goals. So I'll select that option for the peace offer, and then I'll send the peace offer, and we'll wait a little bit longer for their response. And they should comply because, like I said, you only need the acceptance to be 1, and they will accept it. Our war with the Skinneri Nation has ended due to them being vassalized or annexed by YouTube worthy. We have not entered a truce. So we're agreeing to this. We have won the war, etc., etc. The best possible outcome. And you can see that none of the actual empire's borders have changed, but if we hover the cursor in the Skinneri Nation's territory, they are now a tributary under our wing. So this should help stabilize our economy, jumping from negative 172 energy to negative 114. So they are paying us their tribute. And I think that should sum it up for this particular video. So to recap, we've covered Casus Belli, war goals, war exhaustion, and negotiating for a peace if you must. So be aware that the war mechanics, they're very different now. Essentially, starting and ending wars is extremely different, but how you want to go about winning a war, for the most part, is the same. Try to conquer as many systems as you can, or I should say occupy as many of their systems as you can by attacking their star bases and quote-unquote destroying them. Remember, star bases can't be destroyed, they simply change hands, and you can occupy them by taking their health down to 0, and then you now occupy that starbase. Same thing with planets. You simply need enough armies to invade the planet and take out their armies, and you are now occupying that planet. So the planetary occupation side of things is still the same as the old version. So occupy as many of their systems as you can, and if you are doing that successfully, you might just have to wait a little longer for them to get enough war exhaustion, and then you can force your particular war goals upon them. So I hope this video has been helpful for new and old players alike learning these new mechanics that came with the version 2.2 update. If you'd enjoy seeing more videos such as this one, please subscribe to the channel, as there will be additional mechanics videos in the future. And don't forget to check out the links in the description below, such as my Twitch channel where I stream Stellaris Console at least once a week, and I can interact with viewers live while playing. You'll also find my Twitter feed, which is a great way to keep in touch with me, and I'll post important announcements there. Lastly, you'll find a link for my own personal Discord channel for fans of my content to freely join. It's not mandatory, but you're more than welcome to. And that'll be it for this video. Thanks very much for watching. This is Mobius signing off for now, and I hope to see you again real soon.